How significant is it that the U.S. has put Houthi rebels back on the terrorist list?
Pretty significant. In the early days of the Biden administration, they had taken the Houthis off this list in order to help the civilian population of Yemen. It was a very dire situation. This reverses that partially. So the Biden administration has chosen to now nominate the Houthis as a specially designated global terrorist organization. So they're not putting them on the foreign terrorist organization list, which would be more serious, but they are, as you say, partially reversing that decision. In the State Department's statement, Antony Blinken said that there will be a 30-day implementation delay. So this is going to take place from February 16th. And during that time, the U.S. government will conduct robust outreach to stakeholders, aid providers and partners who are crucial to facilitating humanitarian assistance. And also, the Department of Treasury is publishing licenses authorizing certain transactions related to things like the provision of food, medicine and fuel in order to make sure that the Yemeni people have what they need and that the Houthis don't stop this from becoming a much more larger humanitarian crisis. The Houthi response, as you might imagine, was quite chest-bearing. The first response was grateful. The Houthis spokesperson said the designation was a badge of honor and a recognition of the impact of the group's ship attacks and support for Palestinians. And as if to reinforce that, hours later, we get this attack on an American vessel. So it was almost as if the Houthis were saying, bring it on, thank you very much. The spokesperson said post this attack on the vessel, which the ship owner did confirm, that there would be more attacks and that the Houthis were well within their reason to use attacks as self-defense measures. Now, separately and originally reported by Politico, I want to point out that the European Union is very, very close now to signing off on sanctions for its part, targeting the Hamas leadership. This is slightly separate from the Houthi question and the group's financing. I mean, all of these are designed to sort of cut off funding for these various organizations. Well, the European Union hadn't come together on designating Hamas as a sanctions recipient, but it's now very close to doing that and will happen on Monday. And one of the sticking blocks was that some in the European Union said that travel bans should be considered and asset freezes for some of the Israeli settlers as well. So this is all getting ironed out, according to people familiar with the matter, and we may hear more by Monday.
President Herzog of Israel headed to Davos, and in fact due to give a speech on Wednesday. He's accompanied by the families of Hamas hostages to try and step up pressure for the release. We know that about 136 hostages remain still captured, but also how are things going when it comes to the humanitarian aspect of this conflict?
Well, there's movement, at least, Heidi. How much, it's in the eye of the beholder, right? So, as you said, President Herzog and his wife and some of the families of the hostages are now in Davos. Today they were due to give a speech and to talk as well on panels on anti-Semitism and just ramping up the pressure really on international governments to get more involved potentially in turning the screw on the hostage situation, although that very likely depends on people like Benjamin Netanyahu. So as you said, 136 hostages. There was a Qatar-France moderated deal, as we know, to get some medicine to those hostages that desperately needed 3 months worth of medicine going into Gaza for those hostages. But the deal was struck with Hamas, and one of the sort of things that Hamas wanted was that for every box that went in for hostages, 1,000 boxes went in for its civilians. So that's happening right now. We have confirmation of that. And, there are still something like 15 hospitals, at least partially functioning in Gaza. The health system, though, as we know, is really cracking. The UN warning of famine and the World Hunger Programme estimating that 93% of the Gazan population faces crisis levels of hunger.